Hey, welcome to Lifecentral Church online. So glad that you could connect with us wherever you are connecting from. Normally, pre-COVID and actually post-COVID as well, we are one church in 4 locations: Halesowen, Hagley, Rowley Regis, and overseas in Durrës, Albania. But now we're one church in many locations, and you are so welcome. We are so glad that you could connect with us wherever you're connecting from.
Yeah, hello, we're really happy to see you. Great to be with you today. This is actually the start of the holiday season. Feels a bit strange, doesn't it? We've been fortunate enough to go away for a few days, so we're still kind of in the holiday mood.
Yeah, a little bit.
But one of the great things about being online, it means that you can share with us wherever you are. And I know there's some people tuning in from all over the place this morning. Great to be with you, great to see you. And remember, if you're heading off out on holiday, you can still tune in because we can come with you. Wouldn't that be great?
That's a scary thought, isn't it? As you go on holiday over the summer, we are coming with you. So whether you're in a caravan or in a hotel or a cottage or whatever, we can be there with you. That's a little scary thought for you, but it means that you can connect. In fact, if you are on holiday right now, why don't you put in the chat, whether that's Facebook, YouTube, or Church Online, where you are tuning in from. We've already had someone tuning in from Saundersfoot. We know someone's in Mallorca. Great to see you. We wish we were there. No, we don't. We don't at all. No. But it'd be great if you put it in the chat where you are tuning in from as well. And just to say, this is week 4 of our Search History series. What does Jesus say about anger is what we are looking at. Andy Hancock, who is our next gen pastor, who's done an outstanding job leading in so many ways through this last 4 months or so. He is going to be speaking to us, and I'm really looking forward to that. In fact, I think it's going to be a little bit unexpected because many of us think, oh, okay, anger, that's going to be about anger management, which is really important. And we spoke about that earlier on in the year, but that's actually not what Andy's going to be looking at today. So you want to tune in and stay connected for that. That's going to be great. But just to set it up, we asked some people in our church, what kind of low level, kind of trivial things cause them to be angry. And I have to say, I've only just looked at this today, okay, having come back from holiday, and I was in stitches looking at this. We hope that this entertains you and also raises up the theme and maybe gets you to think about what causes you to be angry. Take a look.
Okay, so the things that get me really low-key annoyed and angry are people who don't indicate when they're driving. I can't read your mind. I don't know where it is that you're wanting to go.
People who hog the footpath.
When my nail polish smudges or chips. Can't have that, I'm sorry. Nah.
I get mildly irritated, or actually very irritated, if the Villa score or get any points at all.
Sorry, but I've got to confess, what really makes me angry is my team going 1-0 down, especially when that Liverpool have gone and won the league.
People who drop rubbish.
Oh, this UK weather is not conducive of gardening time. So unpredictable. It's just not like Miami.
Oh, drivers who don't say thank you when you let them out of junctions.
I have 3 big toilets with 3 big holes. But yet still, the boys managed to get me on the toilet seat.
People who don't follow the socially distancing arrows around supermarkets and Maryhill makes my blood boil.
I'm a very calm person, so I don't get angry. Can you keep the noise down? We're trying to record a video in here. Take it from the top.
Things that winds me up in life. Look at all these lovely pictures, but then look how wonky they are. They don't line up. None of them are straight. As if, man. And then the other thing is, I'm Mancunian. I sound like a right proper brummie. It's not on.
So what gets me low-key annoyed is coming up on the roof to do a job and forgetting a tool that I need, and then having to go all the way back down the ladder to get it.
What makes me angry? Well, since becoming a mother, I can say I don't really get angry at anything. Everything. Anything.
Grey squirrels. That's what makes me angry. Digging the bulbs up in the garden and eating them. Decimating the bird feeders. Digging holes in the lawn. That's what makes me angry.
And then the final one, and it drives me absolutely mad, and this just the anger is real. When people say Pacific instead of specific, just Ugh.
I have to say that was so funny, and I'm absolutely dying here, and I want to be Pacific about.
Yes. Let's be really Pacific.
Absolutely. And I don't know what makes you low-level angry or annoyed, and there's so much going on in our world right now, and Alison's going to link from that video into worship, aren't you?
That's a really easy link to make, isn't it? We're still laughing here, but do you know what? The truth is there are loads of things that really annoy us in our everyday lives, aren't there? Probably most of us are agreeing with a lot of that stuff that we've just heard. But one of the really great things about coming into the presence of God is it gives you a chance to lay aside all of those irritations and all of those kind of petty annoyances and to allow God to turn them into something much more beautiful. And we're going to sing together in just a minute, and we're going to sing the song Graves into Gardens, a great song about Jesus turning negative stuff into positive things.
Great. Let's sing.
I've searched the world, but it couldn't fill me. Man's empty praise and treasures that fade are never enough. But you came along and put me back together, and every desire is now satisfied here in your love. Oh, there's nothing better than you.
everyone, my name is Olga and let me tell you a little bit about my history with Jesus. So when I first started my relationship with him, I was often complacent and subjective to when I'd find the right time to start a relationship with him. And it got to a point where I would compare myself and my journey and my relationship with him to other people's. Like, for example, I would always be in a church service and I'd look around and see who had their hand up and I'd think, okay, this is the verse, this is the right time for me to do it. And it would cause such an unnecessary pressure within me. And eventually my outlook changed when I realised that I can't compare my path or my journey with him to other people's, because we all have different perspectives of faith and we're all on a massive spectrum of faith. So once I realised that, it made me concentrate and focus on my personal relationship with him. And once I did that, I just opened up my mind way more, and it made me get rid of some of the inside pressure which was built up within me.
Hi there, and thanks so much for being part of our service today and being part of us. If you're enjoying this service, I want to encourage you to share. If you're watching on Facebook, hit the share button, send it to a few friends. And for those of you that don't know me, my name is Andy. I'm the next gen pastor here at Lifecentral Church. So when I'm not messing about in the pre and post service hangouts, I'm overseeing our work with kids, youth and young adults. And that's why it was so good for me to see Olga, one of our young people, sharing a bit of her story. And she's so right. You know, we can't compare our journeys to other people. All of us watching this right now will be at different points in our journey with Jesus. And so if you're tuning in for the first time, I want to really welcome you, and I want to say, you know, what I've got to say, I think could be really relevant to you. But also, if you've been part of church for centuries and you know all of this stuff, I still think what I'm going to say today might have something to say to you. So please do track with us. You know, I'm continuing our search history series today, looking at what does Jesus say about anger. And it might surprise you that Jesus was a person who did get angry about stuff. And we saw earlier on in the service things that make people low-key angry. One of the things that makes me angry is middle lane drivers. People who just sit in the middle lane on the motorway and just whatever speed they want to go, but they stay in the middle lane. I get angry with it. And, you know, often I'll be driving on the motorway and maybe listening to Graves into Gardens, singing along, and I'll get angry and I'll be like, you turn graves into gardens. Will you move in? You turn bones. Are you messing? And honestly, I'm never more scouse when I'm angry when I'm driving. And, you know, Jesus probably didn't get angry at middle lane drivers. That's not where Jesus got angry at stuff. But Jesus did get angry at things. In fact, at one point, Jesus made a whip, which we're going to talk about and look at a little bit later. But, you know, I think some of the examples where we're going to look at where Jesus got angry, maybe if you're unchurched, you might find this, and you're not a Christian and you're not a Jesus follower, you might find this surprising, maybe encouraging, because you're angry at some of those things as well. And, you know, maybe if you're a Christian and have been a Jesus follower a little while, you might find some of this stuff challenging for you. But I think I'm hoping that we're all going to learn something together today. Interestingly, Jesus only spoke once about anger, and he did it in Matthew 5 in the Sermon on the Mount, which was like his big main sermon that he preached. And he's speaking mainly about us having anger with other people and how we deal with that. And he says in Matthew 5, he says, but I tell you that anyone who is angry without a cause, that's in brackets because in some manuscripts it's there and other manuscripts it's not, but he says anyone who is angry without a cause with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment. And he goes on to talk about it, and he basically, to sum up what he says basically deal with your anger before your anger starts to deal with you. And we did a great session on that back in January. I think it was the 26th of January in the You're Not the Boss of Me series. And Leon, our lead pastor, did a great job of unpacking how to deal with anger within ourselves. So I want to encourage you, not now, but at some point during the next week, to go back and watch that, particularly if you're tuning in, wanting to look at some anger management stuff. That's all in there, and I don't think I can add anything to that. But I want to look at three or four moments where Jesus got angry. Because I think sometimes you can read more about someone's actions rather than the words that they say. And so one of the first things that Jesus got angry at is Jesus is angry with those who cause harm to children. And he says this in Luke 17, and I'm going to read it to you. It says, Jesus said to his disciples, things that cause people to stumble are bound to come, but woe to anyone through whom they come. It would be better for them to be thrown into the sea with a millstone tied around their neck than to cause one of these little ones to stumble. That's not a calm statement from Jesus, is it? It would be better for them to be thrown into the sea with a millstone around their neck. Like, this isn't gentle Jesus, meek and mild, who appears in a stained glass window. Like, he is angry when he says this. And do you know what? I get it. You know, I've been part of the youth and part of Next Gen now for 8.5 years at Lifecentral Church. And we've got lots of children and young people who are either fostered or adopted. And hearing their stories and sitting with adoptive parents who've told me what's gone on in their early life and heard some of the early trauma that they've experienced. When I've heard that, I've been angry. Like, I've been like, tell me the address of their birth parents. I'll go round and I'll knock them out. It's not the thing a pastor should do. But it stirred something up within me. This anger comes out. And what helped me to understand it even further was talking to some of our guys at Phase Trust, which is a youth charity that we work really closely. They gave me this phrase. They said, when you fail to understand somebody's story, you fail to have compassion. And so for me, hearing their stories got me angry, but led me to a place where I could get compassion for them. And I could understand why they would behave in certain ways and why they would react in certain ways. And, you know, those kind of things got me angry. And just to give context to that bit in Luke 17 as well, Jesus does then go on to talk about forgiveness. And you can read that in your own time, and you can read that for the full context if you want. But the second thing that Jesus gets angry with is unfruitfulness. Jesus has this moment in Mark 11 where he seemingly overreacts at this inanimate object and this fig tree, essentially, and he curses it because it looks like it should have fruit, but it doesn't. And we've all had those moments where we've cursed an inanimate object, with this stupid car or this stupid washing machine or whatever it is. We've all had moments like that where we've got angry with something. And Jesus seems to have this like weird overreaction at a fig tree. But I think it's symbolic. And I think it's symbolism for, you know, the tree looks like it should have fruit, but when you look under the leaves, there's no fruit there at all. And I think when we pretend to do the right things, and maybe we show up to church or tune in for church and we say the right things and do the right things, but actually when you look under the leaves of our lives, there's not really fruit there. I think Jesus is saying, like, he's almost angry with like a show of pretense and wants to see the real us. And I think that's quite challenging. I find that quite challenging. If Jesus looked under the leaves of my life, would he find fruit? I really hope he would. The third thing that I think Jesus is angry with is self-righteous judgmentalism. I'm not sure judgmentalism is a word, but we're going to go with it. And if you look through the Gospels, Jesus' harshest words are reserved for the religious people. In fact, Leonard Sweet, who's a writer, he said this: something else made Jesus absolutely livid and was perhaps his greatest irritant: self-righteous judgmentalism. Survey those to whom Jesus directed his strongest, most severe words. It was the self-righteous, judgmental Pharisees and Sadducees, those who didn't see themselves as sinners, but who leveled that charge against everyone else. He characterized such people as blind guides, hypocrites, fools, whitewashed tombs, a brood of vipers, and children of the devil. Not exactly kind words from a mild-mannered disciple. You see, Jesus here, he is angry with people who are most supposed to represent God, misrepresenting God. And you know, that gets me as well. I get really angry when I hear stories of people who have been mistreated or hurt by the church, or people that are supposed to represent God, they've hurt people. And you know, that really frustrates me. In fact, a couple of years ago, I was invited into a local school to be part of a Guerrilla Christian panel, which was basically they could ask a bunch of Christians any question that they wanted. And so I turned up. I was a little bit nervous. They'd advertised it to the whole school, and it was in our lunchtime, and there was over 100 students turned up, and it was quite intimidating. It was like a Christian version of Question Time. It was quite intimidating to be in there, and I noticed this one girl at the middle, at the back of the kind of school hall, and every time there was like next question, she was like, bang, hand straight up, and I could see there was almost like an aggression to her, and I knew she was like desperate to ask her question. And so the moment came when she was pointed at and said, what's your question? And she unloaded this question that was full of just like real aggression towards Christians and like asked quite a hard, direct question to us all on the panel. And I just got a sense that there was a story underneath this. And so I thanked her for her question, and I said, before I answer your question, can I just ask you a question? And she said, yeah, which was good. And she said, I said, what's your experience of church and Christians? And then she shared some of her story about how her and her family had been totally mistreated by a local church and had been really, really hurt. And she unloaded some of the reasons why she thought the things that she did because of the experience that she had. And so I said to her, look, I've got very little authority to do this, okay? I'm not the Pope. I'm just a bald Scouse guy on a stage in Hellzone. I said, but I want to apologize for the way that you've been treated. On behalf of the church, I'm sorry. And you know, the thing that you've described to me there, that makes me angry that happened. And I want to say I'm sorry. And you know, like I say, I don't have any authority really to do that. But if you're watching this today and you've been hurt, you've had God misrepresented to you by the people that are most supposed to represent God to you, I want to say I'm sorry. On behalf of the church, I'm sorry for the way that you've been treated. And you know, you should not have been treated like that. And I want to apologize to that. And I think that's one of the things that Jesus gets angry with. And so that's 3 quick examples of what Jesus got angry with. But I want to look at a 4th example, and we're going to spend a little bit more time in this. And this is where Jesus used the whip that I referred to earlier. So pay attention. If you tuned out, tune back in. And it says this in John chapter 2. When it was almost time for the Jewish Passover, Jesus went up to Jerusalem. In the temple courts, he found people selling cattle, sheep, and doves, and others sitting at tables exchanging money. So he made a whip out of cords and drove all from the temple courts, both sheep and cattle. He scattered the coins of the money changers and overturned their tables. To those who sold doves, he said, get these out of here. Stop turning my Father's house into a market. Who knew it? Jesus made a whip. Like, that might surprise some of you. It surprised me when I first learned that Jesus made a whip. Now, I need to clarify what the whip was. The whip wasn't an offensive weapon. Jesus didn't whip any human being, okay? It says it made a whip out of cords, which is basically like a bit of a rope, almost like, you know, when you're messing around in your kitchen and you've got a tea towel and your whip. It's kind of like that maybe. And Jesus used that whip to generate movement and to get the cattle and the livestock that was in there. He was getting it. He wasn't trying to cause harm. He was trying to create movement. And so I think it's really important to understand that. It's also important to understand that there's 3 main different types of anger. And I'm going to explain those in a moment, but you're going to see 2 of the 3 different types of anger in this video clip. This is an imaginary scenario where Disney princesses are putting a house together for a reality TV show. Have a look.
This season on Real World Magic Kingdom.
I mean, seriously? It's not like I'd eat frog legs in front of her. No one was happy about the new roommate. Not even a real princess.
Look at my outfit! It's so dull and boring. My whole planet blew up and I kissed my brother.
Ew, gross! Why would you use a dinglehopper to eat your salad?
Oh, okay. It's the movie I was in.
These peas are frozen.
She was straight up talking to the china. I mean, why can't she just be normal? Talk to animals like the rest of us.
For the last time, Elsa, I did not eat your apple! It was 3 weeks ago! Just let it go! I will not let it go! One more time! This is ridiculous, Rapunzel! Cut your hair or I'll do it for you!
This is the true story
of Disney princesses picked to live in a house to find out what happens after happily ever after.
Brilliant, isn't it? It made me chuckle that a lot. And you saw 2 types of anger, I think, in there. The first type of anger that you saw was rage. You know, rage is almost like a loss of control, you know, when they're picking up chairs to throw them and diving across the table, threatening to cut their hair. Let's all be honest with each other. We've all had moments where we've had rage, where we've thrown something across a room, where we've hit something or someone. We've all had those moments of rage. The other type of anger is repressed anger. And repressed anger is where you kind of like, you keep it down and eventually it comes out in this like huge explosion. But you keep it down and you pretend everything's okay, but you're low key getting angry and angry and angry, and then bang, an explosion. But the third type of anger, I think, is righteous anger. And righteous anger is basically, I think, controlled anger about the things that we should be angry about. And I've been watching a reality TV show on the SAS where they put 3 people through the SAS training and that course. And they talk a lot about anger and aggression, but they talk so much about controlling it and using it to drive you forward. And for me, righteous anger is controlled anger about the things that we should be angry about. And in all of the examples that we've looked at in Jesus, I think Jesus doesn't show rage or repressed anger. He shows controlled anger about the things that we should be angry about. He shows righteous anger. And so in this moment where Jesus makes a whip and he turns the tables over and he does something, all of that kind of stuff, I think there's 3 reasons why Jesus was angry. The first is that people were being ripped off. You see, it was the Passover festival. People were coming from miles around to Jerusalem to come and take part in the Passover festival. And one of the key things of the Passover festival was that you would have to sacrifice a perfect lamb. And you'd have to bring that to the temple. And so if people were traveling a real distance from other countries, it would be impractical of them to bring a lamb all that way. And so what they would do is they would buy it once they got to Jerusalem. And the people in the temple were saying, only our lambs are the ones that you can use. So they almost had this monopoly. And because people were coming from another country, like the money changes were there, almost like the bureau de change when you go on holiday. And they were driving the exchange rates up and ripping people off. And then, because they've got a monopoly, it's almost, you know, like when you go to Alton Towers and you have to pay £5 for a bag of cheese and onion crisps. It's kind of like that they're saying, oh, these are the only ones that you can use. And therefore, they were overcharging people and they were exploiting people's desperation and their ignorance. And they were ripping people off, and Jesus was angry about that. The second thing that Jesus was angry about in this story is that it was robbing people of peaceful prayer. You see, all that hustle and bustle in the temple courts, a place where you were supposed to come and pray and spend time with God, had been turned into this marketplace. And you know, I think Jesus gets angry with worry. In fact, in the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 6, Jesus almost goes on a little bit of a rant about worry. And you'd be forgiven for thinking that Jesus is angry with us for being worried. But that's not what he's saying. Jesus is saying he's angry with worry itself. Because the definition of worry is to torment your mind. And Jesus is known as the Prince of Peace. He's got many names, and one of them is he is the Prince of Peace. And see, Jesus gets angry with the things that rob us of our peace. He doesn't want us to be filled with worry and anxiety. And so he's not angry with you for being worried or for you for having anxiety, but he's angry with worry and anxiety itself. And Jesus isn't happy when we're robbed of peace. The third thing that Jesus was angry with is he was angry with it being blocking people's access to God. You know, all that marketplace in the temple court, it would have been difficult for people to actually get into the temple, the place where they would go and spend time with God. And I get angry with this too. You know, the thing I love most about Lifecentral Church is that we are determined to be a church where unchurched people can be a part of. What that means is basically we're a church where non-churchy people, where people who wouldn't call themselves followers of Jesus, you can come and be a part of us as well. We're determined to remove every blockage that would be in the way of somebody coming to know Jesus. That's why we do things in the way that we do, and I absolutely love it. And sometimes I find myself at weddings in other churches that, I'm not going to name names, but if I find myself in other churches at weddings and I look around and I see people and I'm like, this might be the first time that you've been in church for a decade. And I think, what an opportunity. And my mates who are getting married, they're Christians, and I'm like, yeah, this is going to be great. They're in church, and there's a real opportunity here for these people to meet God. And then I literally, at one wedding, the vicar, the priest, the pastor, the leader, whatever, gets up before the bride comes down the aisle. And this is his moment to welcome everybody. And he goes, hello, welcome to my church. You must not take any photographs during the service. You must not shout out during the service. You must not, under any circumstances, drop confetti on the church ground. And he was like angry and mean and rude to everybody. And I'm sat there twitching in my seat because I'm like, mate, these people are in your church for the first time in a decade and you're treating them like that. Can you feel me getting angry about that? And so Jesus gets angry when people's access to God is blocked by things that shouldn't be there and things that shouldn't be in the way. So how do you respond when it comes to righteous anger? Here's what I think you should do. You should load up social media and then quickly type down all of your unfiltered thoughts into a post. Maybe mention the people that you're angry with, post it, and then periodically over the next few days, post articles that back up your unfiltered thought. Of course, that's not what I'm saying. Please don't cut that and take it out of context because that will look really bad. You know, Paul, who was one of the key people in kind of spreading the message of Jesus, he wrote to a church in Ephesus, and it appears in the book of Ephesians in the Bible. He said this in Ephesians 4, verse 26, in your anger, do not sin. You see, there are things that should make us angry, but the key is how we respond to that anger. Our anger shouldn't lead us to sin, to hurt, to pain. It shouldn't lead us to there. We should allow our anger to fuel us, to generate movement towards a positive change. In fact, Steve Addison, in Movements That Change the World, he said this: movements are characterized by discontent, vision, and action. Discontent unfreezes people from their commitment to the way things are. Movements emerge when people feel that something needs to change. If the vacuum created by discontent is filled with a vision of a different future and action to bring change, then a movement is born. You see, here's the bottom line of what I want you to remember today. The thing that I'm trying to communicate is this: righteous anger should create movement and change, but never an explosion. Righteous anger should create movement and change, but never an explosion. So how do we know when we've got righteous anger? You see, I think we should ask the question, is God angry with this too? Because we're looking for anger that concerns God's purposes rather than our own preferences. So is God angry with middle lane drivers? No. Is God angry with people using the word Pacific when they should be saying the word specific? No, he's not. Is God angry with the humanitarian crisis in Yemen? Yeah, absolutely. Is God angry with the injustice that black people have had over centuries? Yes, you bet you. You see, we should be angry with injustice. We should be angry with poverty. We should be angry with abuse, with neglect, with harm. We should be angry with all of those things because Jesus was too. But here's the thing. Jesus always did something to correct what was wrong. And so should we. Our anger shouldn't lead to hate. We have to be so careful of that. Author and theologian Lewis Smead, he wrote this: healthy anger drives us to do something to change. to change what makes us angry. Anger can energize us to make things better. Hate wants to make things worse. You see, healthy and righteous anger should always lead to compassion and a desire for change, but it must never lead to hate. Jesus never hated. Jesus wasn't somebody who had hate. He always had compassion and forgiveness. And so this is where I think the most difficult balance of all comes, is that we need to be angry at the injustice, but we need to have forgiveness and compassion to the people causing the injustice. And that's really hard. I wouldn't say I've managed that, and I think really the only way that I think you can manage that is through relationship with Jesus and the work of the Holy Spirit in your life. And you know, maybe you're someone who's carrying anger towards a person who's caused injustice. I want to give you an opportunity in a little bit to pray and ask God to speak into some of that. And I just want to say this, you know, choosing to stay angry at somebody is like constantly drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. You're only hurting yourself. And so I don't want people to get the wrong message here. I want to be really clear as I finish. I'm not saying that Jesus says Christians should go out and be angry about everything. Absolutely not. We're supposed to be filled with the joy of the Lord and all of that stuff. But Jesus wants us to be angry at the things that he is angry about too. And maybe you're a Christian, or maybe you've been following Jesus a little bit, and the stuff that should make you angry doesn't. Maybe you feel a bit ambivalent and a bit about stuff. Maybe almost there's like where there should be righteous anger and like a holy discontent, there's just a hole of nothingness. And I want to pray for you, because I think often the thing that can drive you, the calling, the thing that you live for, even the thing that you would die for, comes from a place of discontent and righteous anger. And so I want to pray for you if that's you, if you're hungry for some righteous anger, not just hungry to be angry at everything and anything, nobody wants that, but hungry to have a righteous anger, then I want to pray for you right now. And maybe you want to open up a chat with one of our online pastors on any of our platforms, you can do that. But I'm going to pray for you now. God, I pray for those people who just feel a sense of ambivalence, feel a sense of just numbness towards things that should get them angry. God, I pray that you would create a stirring of passion, of holy discontent. God, I pray that you would almost help people to find the thing that they were created to do and created to make a change for. God, I pray for all of us. Would you help us to manage that balance of responding in the right way to righteous anger? God, I pray that our righteous anger would lead to movement and change, but never an explosion of hate or rage. God, I pray that you would teach us all of that. And God, might we be people who choose to have controlled anger at the things that you are angry about. And would you help us to find a way that we can bring about positive change? Amen. Amen. Maybe you're a person who feels like you're carrying anger towards a person. Maybe you tuned into this expecting me to say Jesus says he'll just cut all your anger out and it'll be all solved. And maybe you're just like, I just know I'm angry about it. Or maybe you think you're angry about stuff and you want Jesus to show you. We're going to sing a song now, and it's called Bigger Than I Thought You Were. And this song is about it says, I let go of all negotiation with the God of all creation. And it's about us sitting back and admiring how big God is and just giving it to him. And maybe whilst we sing this song, maybe you want to close your eyes, open your hands up. Maybe you want to sit on your sofa or lie on the beach, wherever you are, and open your posture and open your heart to God, to begin to deal with some of that anger that you carry. Maybe you feel like you've been drinking that poison, expecting them to be hurt. And whilst we do that, our online pastors are available on Church Online. You can follow the links if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube. And we would encourage you, if you want to open this up with any of our online pastors, you can do that. But we're going to sing this song, and as we do that, I want to encourage you to open yourself up for God to speak to you. This song is bigger than I thought you were.
Speak to me. Speak to me when the silence steals my voice. You understand me. You understand me. Come to me in the valley of unknowns. You understand me. You understand me. You understand me. You understand me. Oh, I throw all my cares before you. My doubts and fears don't scare you. You're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought. Oh, I stop all negotiations with the God of all creation. You're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought you were. So much bigger than I thought you were. Sing, I believe. I believe, but help my unbelief. You understand me. You understand me. Help me reach. Help me reach with the faith that's underneath. You understand me. You understand me. You understand me. You understand me. Oh, we sing. Oh, I throw all my cares before you. My doubts and fears don't scare you. You're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought. Oh, stop all negotiations with the God of all creation. You're bigger Oh, I stop all negotiations with the God of all creation. You're bigger than I thought you were. You're bigger than I thought. I will rest. I will rest in the Father's hands. Leave the rest in the Father's hands. I will rest in the Father's hands. Leave the rest in the Father's hands.
What a phenomenal, what an amazing song that was. And thank you, Andy, so much for that message that you've shared with us this morning. And we're just reminded again about those great words that God is bigger than we ever thought he could. You know, he knows your story. God knows your story. And he has compassion. He's not an angry God. But he did, in the form of Jesus, use anger to give us some direction and to show us the difference between self-righteous anger and that kind of righteous, godly anger that inspires us and encourages us to make a change. And I hope that's inspired you this morning. I hope you feel encouraged to really seek the things that are on God's heart and to get an understanding of what it is that he's called us to do as his hands and feet here on earth. So great to share with you this morning. Lovely to see so many of you engaged and so active on the chat as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we're going to pick up, I think, a little bit of this on Tuesday evening as well for Life Central midweek. The Sunday before we went into lockdown, way back in March the 15th, we launched our Compassion Project in Tanzania in Africa. And on that day, which was literally just a few days before lockdown, Lifecentral Church, you sponsored nearly 100 children in a community. And I think when we think about poverty and we think about the righteous anger of God, there's a real connection there. And I've interviewed Luke, who's a compassion staff, on the situation out there. And so we're going to be sharing that on Tuesday night. So we'd love you to connect with us. You know, I think we need to let God break our heart for what breaks his. That's when righteous anger really takes a hold of us in a positive way, like Andy shared with us. So we'd love to see you on Tuesday, 8 o'clock on all of our platforms, Church Online, on our website, YouTube or Facebook as well. Also, thank you so much for those of you that give financially to the work of the church. You know, as we keep saying, the building is closed, but the church isn't shut. We're not reopening the church. We will reopen the building at some point, but the church is active and alive. And when you give financially, you enable us to serve people in our communities. You enable us to do what we do. You enable us to reach people. So thank you so much for giving. And if you want to give financially, then we'd love you to do that. You can scan the QR code right now that's appeared just below me, or you can go onto our website and you can go onto our giving page there. And thank you so much for those of you that have, you know, you've transitioned your giving from, you know, in-person giving here to online giving. That's a massive help to us. Thank you so much for that. And we'd encourage you to keep doing that as well through this season. Also, just in a couple of minutes' time, Alice and I are going to be in the studio doing the post-service hangout. We are going to be saying goodbye to our Equip students. That's our gap year guys and girls. They've been with us for a year. We've been running Equip for a few years now. We've never had an Equip year like this year. And our guys have been absolutely amazing. The way they've adapted to COVID-19. You know, some of them have literally traveled all across the world to be with us. And some have traveled from Wales and other parts of the country to be with us as well. And they've been amazing. So we'd love you to stick around and help us to say goodbye to them and help us to pray for them and help us also to thank them for all that they have been doing for us as a church. Guys, thank you so much. Please hang around. We will be with you in 2 minutes in the post-service hangout. See you in a bit.